I'm Brigantia Blackbird of the Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome to the daily forecast for Saturday, August 24th, 2024. A very good morning to everyone on this day of the witch and the wizard. It is Saturn's day, Loki's day, the 3rd of Virgo, the 20th of Hazel, the 3rd of Bear, and the 28th of Haynear, which is the haymaking month. In our astrology, the sun is in Virgo, mutable earth, representing industry. The moon is third quarter Taurus, a fixed earth, representing endurance. Mercury is retrograding in Leo, fixed fire, representing fragile relationships. Venus is in Virgo, mutable earth, representing perfectionism. Mars is in Gemini, mutable air, which is to be pugnacious. Jupiter is in Gemini, mutable air, representing questing. Saturn is retrograding in Pisces, mutable water, which is to redefine dreams. And Uranus is in Taurus, fixed earth, representing renovation. Neptune is retrograding in Pisces, mutable water, which is about spiritual awakenings. And Pluto is retrograding in Aquarius, fixed air, which is to examine intentions. And for our retrograde reminders, for Mercury, it's reevaluate communication patterns. For Saturn, reclaim your authority. For Neptune, reclaim faith, joy, magic, and imagination. For Pluto, reclaim your ability to regenerate. And for Chiron, restore the heroic spirit. We have a waning gibbous moon, which means we need to absorb revelations. For the Taurus moon, the do's are practical tasks, realism, and rejecting distractions. And the don'ts are trying to change someone's mind, needing to have fast reactions, and having to improvise. So on this day of Saturn, the practical Taurus moon may drive the Saturnalian urge to just kind of sort things out. The period of Saturn is about rethinking what we've striven for and why. And at this point, we may be confronted with the realities of what's going to be required for us to effect change or for us to continue to pursue the course that we have been on, whatever is appropriate for our circumstances. Because by this time, Saturn has been retrograding for a little while. We have been receiving messages and lessons about what it is that we need to do for good or, well, as far as successes and failures go, I should put it that way. So now it really is just about seizing that moment, while we have the Taurus moon, while we are now in Virgo season, to make the appropriate adjustments or to make the future plans that will determine how things go in the future. So there's all of that to bear in mind for right now. Our tarot card for the day is the 8 of Wands. The number 8 represents new beginnings. The suit of wands is the emotional masculine, projective energy, the fire element, and the will. The key words for the card are fast-moving events, receiving important information, putting ideas into action. Some of those words make our Taurus moon happy, and others definitely do not, particularly anything about fast and having to decide immediately. However, despite that, and despite that we might be feeling ourselves pushed into a pace that's a bit quicker than what we really want to do, nevertheless, if we are on a mission today is really a good day to pursue it. Keep your eye on the prize. Try to, avoid being flustered. Just do focus on the job at hand, and you can make it all work to your advantage. Today's Celtic Triad reads 3 things which make a marriage happy: equality of age, equality of lineage, and equality of possessions. So when it comes to age differences, there are age differences that are reasonable, and there are those that are not. Too much difference between ages, it makes it difficult for people to connect. Because even though, we are obviously talking about people of adult years, beyond the age of consent, even though, just because people have the right, a legal right to pursue a relationship as long as the other person is agreeable, it doesn't necessarily mean that too great of an age difference is going to ultimately be beneficial to either party, because at a certain point you're almost like other generations. I was noticing when I was single that if you had much more than double digits as far as the fellow being older than me, it was like he really was in a different generation, very different worldview, different attitudes, different approach to life, and it wasn't always particularly compatible, just because I was seeing the world in a very different way. And nowadays it seems like if there's 5 years difference between people's ages, they're okay, video's back. They are just not on the same wavelength at all. And because we're talking about marriage, we're not talking about a working relationship or a friendship or being good neighbors. We're talking about marriage, the most intimate possible human relationship. You need to be able to have as much common ground as you possibly can so that you can work together as a team. And too much difference in age, that can really get in the way of that. And then when it comes to equality of lineage, this is going to ruffle some feathers, particularly on the American side of the pond. We are in a rage for equality. But despite all that, people do still have perceived social statuses, and they tend to be uncomfortable when they wander too far away from it. And again, it's about people's comfort zones. I mean, and while it is healthy for us to push ourselves outside of our comfort zone from time to time, should that really be a lifestyle? Should we feel uncomfortable in the sphere of life that our spouse is comfortable in? Do we really think that's not going to cause problems? Are we really ignoring all the examples of people who essentially found themselves in different cultural surroundings? I mean, and you're going to encounter that to a certain extent anyway, because no two families are exactly alike. But again, you get things that are too far different from one another. How are they connecting? How are they communicating? How are they deciding what's important? How do they decide how to spend a Saturday night, for that matter? You don't. You have to have things in common. And even though we don't think of lineage and status and social classes in the same way as what our ancestors would have, and not even the same way as we would have a few generations ago, there's still there are differences. People are just, it's different life experiences. I mean, and that just is what it is, regardless of our opinions about that and whether or not we think that reflects how things should be. That we are still contending with the reality of these things existing. And when it comes to marriage, you don't want to stack the deck against you. And then the quality of possessions. This is a really difficult one, especially in this day and age in which it's essentially been normalized for people to have massive and hideous amounts of debt, a lot of times having to do with schooling, and people being encouraged to do schooling by their parents and their teachers and their counselors and just about everyone else on earth, who told them, oh, it'll all be fine. Don't worry about your loans. You'll get a job and it'll all be fine. And then, between inflation and between, not all degrees are built the same and are going to end up with the same kind of a monetary compensation, even if you do go into the profession. People have just found themselves in really difficult situations. And, of course, tying your boat to someone who also has massive amounts of debt, that's going to create a lot of problems. It's one of the reasons why people aren't as apt to have children. And then if someone has made more advantageous financial decisions, are they going to want to take on the burden of someone who did not make good financial decisions, even if they were being pressured at a young age? I mean, everyone talks about, well, they were 18, they knew what they were doing. I'm thinking, people are not raising kids to be adults at 18. I am sorry. They are not giving them the necessary life experience. They are not giving them the necessary training. They are not actually setting people up to become functional adults at 18. And so this is why I have a lot more compassion for people who got in over their heads when they were literally following the counsel of older people. And you can't tell kids, you need to listen to the older people, and then have the older people not take responsibility when they actually did dish out bad advice, and advice that turned out to be bad. So that's a little pearl of wisdom for you. But the trouble is, when you have issues over money, possessions, property, debt within a marriage, and who's entitled to what, who's responsible for what, and how all that gets sorted out, it can get very ugly very, very quickly. So that's something to keep in mind if you are considering pursuing the married state. Maybe try to get your house in order as best as you possibly can, just because this causes problems. I wish it wasn't true. I wish I could say that love will conquer all, so you don't need to worry about money issues. But that would be a lie. That would be contrary to all observed life experience. So just be careful and keep these things in mind. Our ancestors, they knew what they were talking about. Now, on a somewhat lighter note, let's talk about today's magical correspondences. They are centered on the theme of spiritual purification. I know this isn't a time of year when we generally talk about purification a lot, but there's a lot going on in the world. So, kind of expunging some unnecessary energy. I think that, this is a good moment for it. So for this, we have the color indigo, the plant is peppermint, the animal is the owl, and the crystal is salt. And Saturdays in general are a really good time to get junk out of your system. And especially since the moon is now waning, this is absolutely ideal to push out anything from your life that you do not want cluttering up and taking up space you require for other purposes, including mental space. The burdens upon our mind are Okay, video's back. As I was saying, the burdens of our mind can take up more mental space than anything to do with our physical environments. So, if this is something that a work you feel called to do, I hope this is an encouragement for you to go ahead, pursue that, start. Have a bit of a clearing out. We have the moon waning. We're in Mercury retrograde. We're changing seasons. So, if there are things that just need to go, this is really the time to do it. Now, on regards to our today's magical practices, you might decide to drink some pomegranate juice. That's also is kind of helpful for this idea of moving energy out of our system. Also, you might study the Hermetic principle of gender. There are masculine and feminine aspects of within everything, even things that are overwhelmingly more masculine and are overwhelmingly more feminine. There's still a point of connection where they have at least a seed, a kernel of their opposites energy within themselves. That's actually how human beings are able to bond, between men and women. It's because even though we are quite different from one another, we still have these points of connection, and that's what allows us to bond instead of just being in a constant state of conflict. So thinking about that, thinking about how to use this on the energetic level, that might be a fruitful meditations today. And then today's aspect of the witch's pyramid is the pinnacle, the release point, the point where we're really sending that energy out into the universe. It's going out there, it's getting things done, it's bringing about the final stage of manifestation. It's the point of getting the work done. And it's kind of been a theme for today of just get out there, get it done. Another thing you might do if you find the time for it is to read up on the lore of the Sphinx. The Sphinx is a very complicated, very interesting thing. And it's well worth peeling back some of those layers, just even out of sheer curiosity. And of course, another thing you might do today is to cleanse the altar. It is Saturday after all. And today's journal prompt is asking you the question: does your spiritual practice reflect who you are as a person? And I found this lovely illustration of this absolutely gorgeous silk robe. I would just die to have that robe myself. But we have this lady. She's looking in the mirror and she's clearly in a state of contemplation. So you might contemplate today: are your spiritual practices really reflecting who you are as a person? Is it tailored to your needs and to your desires and to your goals? Or do you have too many other people inside of your head? Because it's okay to shut some of those voices out and say, okay, I might come back to your advice later, but I'm so distracted by your advice, I can't even hear myself think. If you can't hear yourself think, you're not going to be making the proper decisions for yourself. So that might be a little something for you to journal about today, and then decide what to do about it, depending upon what answer you come up with. And that will do it for today. Have a wonderful Saturday. Have a fantastic weekend. If you want to, please follow me at Blackbird's Brew on X. You can find the Blackbird Grimoire on YouTube and Rumble. And of course, visit me and the rest of the gang at Oak and Elder Witchery on Gilded, link in the description to join. But I think that will do it for now, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.